first-round running back. How about a top 10 running back? That's what we have in Ashton Jeanty and Kyle Crabbs' latest 2025 NFL mock draft.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase.
Today on the show, we are looking at my fourth mock draft of the season for over at the 33rd team on their NFL Draft League there. Looking at some new names. It's always exciting to see the back eight. Guys that sneak in, get into that final quarter of the mock draft. An offensive line drought as we continue to wait for somebody to emerge and separate themselves from the pack. But we have to start with the top 10. And specifically, I did a piece last week looking at, like, over the last 10 years, common themes amongst top 10 running backs. And lo and behold, Ashton Jeanty meets a lot of those common themes with guys that win in that stratosphere. And because of that, I tried to find a spot in the top 10 for him to go. And Joe has not seen the mock in its entirety, but he does know Jeanty goes somewhere in the top 10. But he knows nothing else about the mock. And we're going to explore it here now and let him scroll and just react to stuff as it comes to him in this latest mock draft.
I'm fun to do it this way. And listen, I know probably people out there thinking, yeah, Joe didn't look at the mock. I'll tell you what, I haven't. If there's one thing I'm not in the world, it's a liar. I promise you that I have not scrolled through this. I know that Ashton Jeanty is a top 10 pick for the sake of being able to do that cold open. I'm excited to see what team Kyle has him playing on. So shall we? I'm on the 33rdteam.com, which, and I've said this before, I love that in the top right corner, it says you've scrolled however many yards to get to 100 yards. So it'll be a nice way for me to know where I'm at. So here we go. I'm scrolling, Kyle Crabbs. New England Patriots, Travis Hunter, wide receiver / cornerback.
How do you put anybody else first right now? Are they a team that needs a quarterback? That's really the only pathway in my mind to not have Travis Hunter go number one.
Step one is, how did you determine the draft order?
I use the current order courtesy of Tankathon.
Right. So, like, if a different team, Cleveland, perhaps, is picking number one, or
I have a hard time putting, because they still have a need at wide receiver long term. They've got a couple of guys as expiring contracts. Spoiler, they take wide receiver, but we're not going to go through and read all the names. You can put the link in the show description, and you're going to have to go read it for yourselves. But would they take a quarterback? Like the Watson contract still, from a cap perspective, feels unseverable next year. They have Jameis Winston. Like they refuse to move over to Jameis Winston, despite the fact that they added him this offseason. Like, at what point is an investment that they're going to make be like, yeah, we're going to do not Deshaun Watson at quarterback? So I didn't give him a quarterback.
Kyle, we had to get to the thing that we promised we talk about in this first segment, and that's where Ashton Jeanty is going. So I scrolled so I can find Mr. Ashton Jeanty, New Orleans Saint Ashton Jeanty.
What do you think?
Okay, so yeah, no, that's fun. Obviously, Jamal Williams, Alvin Kamara, very aging pair of backs, and we knew Kamara had some like contract disputes.
They could save about $19 million in cap space if they move on from him this offseason.
Guess what's happening this offseason? They're
going to move on from him. Yeah.
Boy, I wonder who's making this decision, if Mickey Loomis is still around, and if that's the card he would turn in, or if this is time for like a hard reset. I mean, obviously, I think with the way that division is shaping up, I think if you can have that run game to lean on, it'd be huge. And obviously, they have offensive line talent.
Doesn't that feel like a play for this regime for them, though? Like, they've always had their guys. It's like, we're going to go get our guys, and like, we don't really care about like picking for volume, or it's like we just identify players that we think can be like essential players for us, Their run game was the catalyst of success in the first 2 weeks for them. They have older backs that they can save a lot of money on from if they rip the Band-Aid off. And they've, they traded up. They traded like significant assets for like Adam Troutman in the past. Like, I don't think they'd be phased at like just organically turning in a card at 10 that had a running back on it.
Well, and I think there's probably going to be a case that maybe there already is a case that Ashton Jeanty as a running back is a better running back than X is whatever other position.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's probably factual for almost every player in the class.
Right. Will Johnson might have something to say like about the corner piece of that, but I haven't seen a player yet in this draft that's better at their position than Ashton Jeanty. And it feels like we watched him earlier in the season. It seems like he's only expanded and made himself more valuable with how he keeps destroying college football. So I have taken the liberty to scroll the top 10. I haven't looked past the top 10, but I think my favorite pick in here is the Bengals getting Mason Graham.
Yeah.
Out of Michigan. Like, I feel like that's such a critical need. I feel like their interior defensive line, like for a while it was who's behind Hill and Reeder, and now it's like we need starters.
Yeah, it's like Rankins is not a long-term solution,
right?
And they just need more teeth there.
Yeah.
And because BJ Hill's like a fine player to have in your group, but he's not DJ Reeder.
All right.
And to be fair, Mason Graham's not DJ Reeder either, but I think he could be a more dynamic 3-down talent to serve as the cornerstone of your defensive front. For Cincinnati.
Yeah, we got a couple quarterbacks going in here. We're not going to spoil the whole thing, but I also really like the Rams just like loading up on all these pass rushers after getting Fiske and Verse last year. They now have Abdul Carter, and I think that's the type of front that makes sense to me for how they could deploy him to go with, the Kobe Turner, and they got some other young rush rushers, edge rushers as well. So I love the idea of them like loading up there. I think that was kind of the hallmark of their Super Bowl team. Like everybody talks about Stafford, but it was like Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, Aaron Donald, Greg Gaines. Like it was a good rush group. And so I love kind of the idea of getting back to a lot of that.
Yeah. And having so much youth as a part of that, as compared to the original iteration of that was all veteran guys, I think gives a really exciting, like long-term, because you're not worried about Sean McVay and his ability to create offense. And they've made investments in the offensive line, and they hit on a day 3 wide receiver. Cooper Kupp long term is a question for them for sure, but they got a couple young running back. Like they've got enough of a foundational house in which they can work with offensively that I think defensively it was like, okay, like what's the best thing that I can give them to really reignite that side of the ball. And they have so much youth, so a guy who could play all over was really exciting for me to add for them.
I'm also excited, and this is a tease for tomorrow. We're going to talk prospects on Wednesday. 2 of the prospects that we're talking about tomorrow go in the top 10 of this mock draft.
You don't have to wait long for the third one either. Spoiler alert.
Well, I will scroll and find that. So obviously don't miss tomorrow. If you want draft talk on this podcast, you're getting it. Tomorrow we're breaking down 3 very, very high picks from this mock draft. Again, this mock draft is linked in today's show notes. On the other side of it, we're moving on. I'm going to keep scrolling. We'll keep breaking this thing down for you. Be sure to stick with us. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is also the only real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy, so that way your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right. So top 10, nice tease. I assume you're making reactions to things you're scrolling through.
Well, I've scrolled 2 picks and I've seen 2 quarterbacks here. Picks 11 and 12.
Good.
Well, 11 is Carson Beck out of Georgia going to the Giants. And this is the 3rd and 4th quarterback drafted, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then something that I feel like you've been really, really interested in, and that's Mr. Garrett Nussmeier, the LSU quarterback, going to the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah. Which one do you want to talk about?
I mean, the Giants piece feels pretty straightforward. Daniel Jones isn't that good.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if like a different type of quarterback would be more attractive for them, but obviously we need to know who's making that decision. I don't know, man. I don't. Based on who's already gone and what we're learning about some of the other guys, I can understand how you could be resistant to that.
Right. It's the quarterbacks off the board inside the top 10 were Cameron Ward from Miami and Shadur Sanders from Colorado.
Yeah.
So Carson Beck's the 3rd quarterback drafted. And then Nussmeier right behind him. Nussmeier did not play particularly well against Ole Miss. But this is not the first time this season you got into crunch time or you got down. He led a big comeback against South Carolina in South Carolina. Gotta have it moments, game tying drive, 4th down conversions, extended plays, moving in the pocket, hitting some throws down the field. But the things that he does best really overlap with how the Dolphins want to throw the football, with working in the middle of the field and layering throws and having anticipation. So that's why I really like the Nussmeier fit. And I could see them doing this even if Tua Tagovailoa is still here beyond this year. And I know they have a critical decision to make because they signed the contract extension, but they do have an out that they can limit the guaranteed money that he's owed if they go in a different direction. But I think this is just the unfortunate reality of what world the Dolphins are living in right now. You can't put yourself in this position again. And how many times do you look over Tua Tagovailoa's career and the times in which he's gotten hurt and missed times and say to yourself, the play that was there that resulted in the injury was a play that was avoidable
every time.
And that's where I'm at, where you knew the risk and you knew the risk of injury before you signed the contract and he stayed healthy all last year. The part where for me, as a guy who does, I get my daughter's brush again. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just holding a pink handle up for anybody watching on YouTube. The thing for me is you knew what the risk was. He showcased he was capable of making better decisions to protect himself last year. And he signs the contract, and the first opportunity that he has, he reverts back. And now for me, it's like, well, I can't trust you to make good decisions anymore because you've reverted back now that you have the security of a contract. And whether he's here or not here, like, I'm going to be a proponent of the Dolphins drafting the quarterback and get one early.
I think everything you said there, I think what really stands out to me is that you think that there's a world where this type of decision is made, whether it's Nussmeier or a different quarterback in the first round. I think it's a big difference between day 2 and in the first round. You feel like they could draft a quarterback in the first round while Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel, and Tua are all still part of this equation in Miami.
I don't think that you necessarily get out totally scot-free. You gave a $212 million contract extension out. And if that doesn't work and you part ways with the player to avoid another $50-something million guaranteeing, you're still taking a bath on $70 million. If this is a win now season that's supposed to be aggressive and Tua comes back, but they don't turn it around and they end up picking in the top 12, I have a really hard time seeing and reconciling that everybody comes out the other side of that.
It's fascinating because if you pick a quarterback at number 12, you're telling everybody the direction. And so for Tua to still be there, I mean, who would be the least likely of the 3 to still be around if we get to this point and the Dolphins pick 12 and they pick a quarterback?
probably two, it would be the least likely because you'd feel as the team you're in strike zone to land a quarterback, and you have to make a decision by mid-March to say, we're going to guarantee your 2026 salary, which is 50-something million dollars, by having you on the roster past this date, or we're going to accept sunk cost as sunk cost. We can't trust you to make the healthy decisions, and we're not going to guarantee you an additional year's worth of salary and further complicate what our picture looks like.
All right, let's move away from this before people accuse us of having a episode of Locked On Dolphins.
It was like
I know, but anytime we do it, every time we do it, it's people get crazy. You mentioned an O-line drought. That's part of what you've packaged here on this episode. Will Campbell, is he the first one at 14? That does what that's unprecedented, right? Like we don't go 14 picks without an offensive lineman, right?
I think you can this year.
And I feel like I'm not as deep into this class. I'm like 25 players in, but I think I'm supposed to have watched the best ones. And there's none of the offensive linemen have really moved.
They don't really pop at you.
No, not yet. Yeah.
You've had a couple nice classes of offensive linemen, and I think there are some nice interior offensive linemen. I actually like the day 2 talent in this year's class quite a bit. But Will Campbell, I think he's a guard at the next level. He can play tackle. So I think the positional ambiguity kind of helps him as far as teams can see him as a tackle. I put him with Seattle just because he's somebody who I feel like his strengths kind of fit within what John Schneider has historically kind of gone after, but they have a depth on the interior, right? Yeah. It's like, so he can be a tackle and maybe he is a long-term tackle for you, but in the short term, he's going to get you a lot better at one of your guard spots inside because that has been one of the big Achilles heels for Seattle as they've gone from 3-0 to 3-3.
I've been trying to scroll through and see like when the latest of offensive linemen got drafted for the first time in a draft. And Kyle, they're going in the top 10. So this, I totally get it. And I believe that should be the case. Like, don't force it, but man, you're not wrong.
If you're gonna draft for need to just draft an offensive lineman in this class and do so in the first 12 picks, I think you're really going to hurt your potential return on investment versus authentically getting either a quarterback conversation is obviously totally separate, but there are much better players at their respective positions. And that goes back to we gave all these flowers to Detroit yesterday on the show for the team that they've become. And what did they do with their draft classes? Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Jack Campbell. They don't care. It's like, or authentically, are you like a cultural good fit and an elite player at your respective position? Yes, we're going to take you.
Yeah. 2019, Jonah Williams was the first offensive lineman drafted, and he went 11 to the Bengals. Then we get Chris Lindstrom at 14, Garrett Bradbury at 18. And then a million.
And I did get my second offensive lineman at 18. So
here comes the tackle run in the 20s. Dillard at 22, Titus Howard at 23, and Caleb McGarry at 31.
This is exactly the point, though. It's like, we need a tackle, so we're going to take the fourth guy.
Look at these all-stars in the second round. Juwan Taylor, Greg Little, Cody Ford, top 40 picks. Then you get the Dalton Risner, Elgton Jenkins, Eric McCoy. Those wind up being pretty good picks right there.
Interior players.
Right, yeah. I mean, the tackles were not good in this draft, but we did get some rock solid interior players.
And if you change it back around now and said, hey, Elgton Jenkins got drafted in the top 20, would you bat an eye at it?
Yeah.
If McCoy goes top 40, do you bat an eye at it? No, not in hindsight. Yeah, there's good starters at in this draft later on. Okay, so other things is does 20 count? Because 20 is a very fascinating pick to me. You can do 20. That's fine.
Let's get 20 in here because that's Benjamin Morrison, the corner out of Notre Dame. I really like him. What do you think? I feel like this is in my mind, in the way that I view Morrison in this draft, I feel like that's a slide. What do you think contributed there? Am I off on that?
I don't think he's necessarily been as consistent as what he was last year. I mean, he also doesn't get a ton of looks. Some of this for me was fit, and teams like picking between 12, which is kind of where he'd been going for me in previous mocks, and the the Jets? Am I going to put him on the Jets? Am I going to put him on Seattle? Am I going to put him on Dallas? Am I going to put him on Philly?
Right.
Am I going to put him in Chicago? Like, I could put him in Indy, but that you're at 19.
Yeah.
And I feel like I give Benjamin Morrison to the Colts every other week when I do this. So I wanted to give him like something else. So I think for me, Morrison ending up at 20, and I really like the fit there with San Francisco.
Yeah, it's terrific, especially with Travaris Ward as
an expiring
contract.
Yeah.
Perfect.
For
fit.
me, it was a little bit less of what Morrison is or isn't doing versus, hey, the draft order's really changed, and once you get past, I didn't feel comfortable with him in the top 8, just didn't feel like appropriate value. And then that entire next block was, the Saints at 10 with all their good young corners. Like, it just weren't a lot of spots that I'm like, yeah, corner makes a lot of sense here for this team.
Well, if there's a corner slide and somebody gets Morris, if that happens, that'd be a great situation. I think he's gonna be a good starter in the league. Okay, my favorite part of mock drafts are the back of them, right? Because I feel like some combination of the same things happen in the top 20 picks. We're going to scroll on, and I think we're going to see Kyle has here on the lower third or upper third new names. Find out who they are here on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us. Game Time, folks. If you want to purchase tickets for an event, you got to have the Game Time app. Game Time is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. The app is awesome. Very easy to navigate. They give you flash deals. You can toggle on the all-in pricing. They give you a seat view, so you know exactly what to expect when you get to the venue. Plus, when you purchase a ticket, they send it straight to your phone and not having to dig through emails to find it. And they specialize in last-minute tickets, so you can make that choice to attend an event up into the day of the event and still get a great ticket cost over at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Oh, you scroll one more pick.
Didn't have to wait long.
No, I didn't. There they are. Okay, I got an edge rusher. I got to have this moment. All right, this is me reading a mock draft. I always got to know who the Bills.
You always open a mock draft and say whoever this person has for this pick with my team is the player I'm actually going to get. What is my reaction going to be?
I do that every time. You know, my new favorite thing is anytime I get Chinese food, we get a fortune cookie, and then I say, okay, I don't get Chinese food every week, but some regular frequency. I say, all right, this fortune cookie is going to tell me the result of the upcoming Bills game. So I'm very much quirky.
What was the last fortune cookie that you had?
I don't remember, Kyle. I don't think I've had it.
Clearly an impactful.
Well, I'm just saying I do it. I'm just saying I do it whenever I have the opportunity. You gave me a fake player. I've never heard of this guy. Ashton Gillotte, edge rusher out of Louisville. I like edge rusher, so that's cool. What's talking about this player?
He's like 6'3", 270 pounds. He doesn't have great length, but he's really heavy hands. And some of the names I invoked from the Brandon Bean era include he's got some parallels to Epinesa and Boogie Basham as like players that were profiled that Bean took early. And I know maybe there was a negative.
You want to give me some better names, Kyle?
Reflex.
I like Epinesa, but yeah.
He's a really refined pass rusher with his hands. I think he's at 19 sacks over the last 2.5 seasons thus far. He can win in a variety of ways. He wins inside. Jeff Risdon, our friend Jeff Risdon, had invoked the name like John Abraham. If you want to get a little bit more excited about like the build and hand.
Take him at 21 for sure. Yeah.
You're right. So physically, there's parallels to edge players that the Bills have gone after early in drafts before, was my point. But he's really disruptive, super high motor player, really dense. You think about kind of the physicality up front that Buffalo has gone after on the edge for not Von Miller guys. Von's a little bit of a different breed and cut as like a guy that they brought in with the idea of being a closer as a pass rusher. So I just thought there were a lot of different parallels, and he's a player who, for me, is on the rise. So slotting in there at 21 to Buffalo.
We got to talk about pick 22. I haven't even scrolled any further than this, but this, I wanted to keep going.
New names. New names.
Yeah, so Tyler Warren, who's coming off of this monster
17 catches.
Yeah, this was his call. We did him earlier in the year, and I'm like, I just want to see like a little bit like more of the arsenal here.
He heard the show.
Yeah,
he watched the show.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
To
the Chargers.
Put him in the Chargers, right, where they signed Will Dissly in a multi-year contract, but durability's kind of always been the thing there with Will Dissly. Their next 3 names on their tight end depth chart are expiring contracts, so they don't have a lot of long-term stability beyond the player and Will Dissly, who's had some issues with staying healthy. And this is a player who's red hot. It's a position that I think can really matter to the Chargers with what 100%. They want to be offensively. And it's a draft class where your traditional like premium positions, we talked about the offensive line, not that the Chargers need to go that route because of their investments up front in recent years, but I think you will see some other, not like you're going to get another safety before this draft class is over with this mock draft that I have done. So you're going to get 2 safeties in the first round between Malachi Starks and Kevin Winston from Penn State. He goes in the first round. Running back, we saw running back go top 10. Now you get a tight end at 22. Like, I think it feels like that kind of class where if you want to just target the good players,
good idea.
There was no better intersection for me of need, style, and good player than Tyler Warren to the Chargers.
And I feel like obviously that offense would be great for that type of talent at tight end, but and I know Herbert's best season was probably his second season, but his first season was really good as well. And I thought that Hunter Henry was a big part of that equation. Yeah. And I don't think they've given him that player back. No, not close at all. Fun pick there. I like that one. Okay. I got to be selective here.
Right.
Ooh.
25, 26, 27 is an interesting stretch.
Yeah, I would agree. The one I want to add.
You can ask more than one. We've been pretty selective through the first 20.
I know, but 27, Baltimore, because I don't know this player, right? Tre Harris, wide receiver, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of things fascinating because I feel like we need some dudes at receiver to be part of this first round equation. So I'm excited to see a new name. But I feel like anytime you pick a receiver for Baltimore, there's like something about that receiver that would make you feel like he's a good fit for them. And so I want to hear about Tre Harris.
So Tre Harris has played in 7 games, and he has set a
for his career.
No, this season.
Oh, all right.
And has set career highs for receiving yards. He's averaged, while at Ole Miss, 17.5 yards per catch. It's probably easier to say it this way. He's played 19 games in 2 years, a year and a half at Ole Miss. He started his career at Louisiana Tech. Okay. He's a redshirt senior. So he did 3 years at La Tech. One was the COVID year in 2020. And then this is now his 4th season, 2 more at La Tech, and this is his 2nd year at Ole Miss. 113 receptions for 1,972 yards and 14 touchdowns, averaging 103.8 yards per game and almost a touchdown per game during his career at Ole Miss. 6'3", 210 pounds, runs the vertical stuff down the field. Good ball skills, ball tracking skills, physical at the catch point, physical with the ball in his hands, good straight line speed. It's like, okay, you got Derrick Henry, you got Lamar Jackson, you got a shifty guy in Zay Flowers who can win down the field, but now a size guy that can win down the field. You're going to get a lot of zone coverage because guys want eyes in the backfield against this offense. So I think the concerns that you have with Harris is coming out of the Ole Miss offense, and they run a very college spready, a lot of space is available. I think you get more space playing in Baltimore as a receiver because of the challenges of the front and the running game than you would in a lot of different spots. I think that would put him in position to be highly, highly, highly successful.
Another new name here that I'd like to ask you about. Maybe I just need to watch Mississippi because that would answer a lot of my questions.
That'd be a good start.
Yeah, I scrolled past it. It's Walter Nolen, defensive tackle, Mississippi, going to Houston at pick 30. I need to hear about first round defensive lineman.
True junior, transfer from Texas A&M. Spent his last 2 years at A&M.
Okay.
So Ole Miss lane's killing the transfer portal. He's 5-star recruit, has not really lived up to it, but the last couple of games at Ole Miss, you've kind of started to see the disruptive nature that he has. He's penetration style attack player who, when you think about what Houston has on their front with the guys on the edge, they obviously have Danico Autry, who's currently on the suspension list. They don't really have that penetration player inside that you get really excited about. So for me, it was okay. Maybe he still needs time to realize like his physical potential, but you're going to get a ton of one-on-ones playing in a defense with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson and what Houston does from a pressure perspective with the speed that they have on the second level. It just felt like a really good fit for me.
Fun mock, Kyle Crabbs. I feel like you shook some things up here.
Yeah, this was, you're far enough in where like you can authentically say, I'm not going to pick the rest of the games and project the draft. It's like, well, we're a third of the way through the season. The draft order is the draft order. And you're halfway through the college football season. So the resume is big enough now where you could really like put your flag in the ground on some guys. And that's what we did. So this was definitely the most unique one since the first one.
I'd say.
We'll see what 2 weeks from now brings, because I do them every other week over the 33rd team. We appreciate you guys checking out the show. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you list your favorite podcasts. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. We are Locked On NFL Scouting. Make it a great rest of your day. We're back tomorrow to do a couple of prospect deep dives before Thursday. We set the table for NFL Week 7. We hope to see you then.